Hey, good morning, OroNaz. I want to share with you a psalm on my heart this week and invite you into just a couple minutes of reflection on what God has done and what you're hoping for Him to do. But before I do that, I just want to remind you about our family worship and after party that is happening this Sunday at 10 a.m. We'll have our family worship service with the kids and adults joining together throughout the service with our worship choir. Really fun, engaging, family-friendly service for everybody. And then our after party after the service that we're actually going to be doing in the sanctuary now. Because of the forecasted heat, we decided that it would be better to be inside. It's going to be possibly in the upper 90s. And so with the bouncy house and barbecue and fellowship and games, we're still going to do yard games. We'll probably just do them either in the sanctuary or the lobby, or maybe have a little bit going on in the patio, depending on how the weather turns out. But we want to invite you to come, to join us, to come and worship and fellowship and hang out at the after party, and think about a friend or family who you might invite to join with this coming Sunday. The psalm that is on my heart is from Psalm 126. You might not realize this, but every week as part of our staff meetings, we spend about an hour reading, listening, praying, reflecting together in a psalm before or during our staff meeting. And so I want to read this to you and invite you to just ask and reflect on a couple questions during your time today or this week sometime. So from Psalm 126, I'm reading it out of the Message. It seemed like a dream, too good to be true, when God returned Zion's exiles. We laughed, we sang, we couldn't believe our good fortune. We were the talk of the nations. God was wonderful to them. God was wonderful to us. We are one happy people. And now, God, do it again. Bring rains to our drought-stricken lives, so those who planted their crops in despair will shout, "Hurrahs!" at the harvest. So those who went off with heavy hearts will come home laughing with armloads of blessing. And one of the themes, or the prominent theme in this, is joy. And Eugene Peterson, in his commentary and book called A Long Obedience in the Same Direction, Discipleship in an Instant Society, shares and reflects on this psalm. And he talks about joy in our lives as Christians being a consequence, not a requirement. Listen to that again. A consequence, not a requirement. So as we think about fruit of the Spirit, the fruit in our Christian lives, being discipled by Jesus, discipling others, this verse, we laughed, we sang, we couldn't believe our good fortune. Joy is a consequence, not a requirement. And Eugene Peterson says that is the authentic Christian note, a sign of those who are on the way of salvation. Joy is characteristic of Christian pilgrimage. It is the second in Paul's list of the fruits of the Spirit in Galatians 5. It is the first of Jesus' signs in the Gospel of John, turning water into wine. So joy in our lives should be a consequence, not a requirement. I think personally, so often, I think I myself and we tend to think about what we need to do, what's required, what do I need to do in order to bring myself before the Lord, right? We have guilt, we have shame, whatever it is, in our pride, in our sin, we have shame before coming to the Lord. And so we feel like we are required to get ourselves together. And in the same way, we think of the outcomes of our Christian walk, of our Christian lives. Well, we should be reflecting this, we should be reflecting that. And so we get so focused and so hung up on maybe the outcome or the fruit that is supposed to be produced in our lives. And so we risk really becoming legalistic because we focus on that instead of pursuing Jesus, where when we're pursuing Jesus and in that journey, in that walk, in that discipleship, that long obedience in the same direction, as Eugene Peterson uses the imagery, that a consequence of our pilgrimage, a consequence of our journey, is that joy and that fruit that is provided. And so out of the Psalm 126, there's two questions that I want to invite you to reflect on today, to ask yourself, and to maybe after this video, at some point when you have a couple minutes or 5-10 minutes, whatever, to just ask these questions and spend some time just reflecting and praying and ask the Spirit to speak to you and to show you some things in your life, if there's not something already on your heart and on your mind. But this idea of God being wonderful to us, God being good to us, of providing, we are a happy people because of what God has done. So the first question is, what has God done in your life? What is something, some way that he has been good to you? And then a bit further, and now God, do it again. Bring rains to our drought-stricken lives. What is it in your life that you are hoping for? What sort of restoration or redemption are you hoping for? So I invite you to take a couple minutes and think about this question. What has God done? What are you thankful for? What brings you joy and delight as a story, as a testimony in your life, remembering, recounting what he has done for you? And then what is it that you may be hoping for, that you may be longing for, or waiting on the Lord for, and just submit that to him. And just maybe it's helpful to just name that. Maybe you haven't named that thing that you're waiting for, to yourself, to somebody else, or just in prayer simply before the Lord, to name it, to submit it and surrender it to him in prayer and say, Lord, I'm waiting. This is what I'm hoping for. So I invite you to take that time to reflect and to remember this joy that is characteristic of our journey. Again, as Eugene Peterson says, a consequence, not a requirement. So as you go about this day, this week, and the coming days and months, may you find that to be true in your life, this joy that comes from your walk with the Lord. Have a great day and rest of your week, and hope to see you Sunday.